Hashem. I'm turning on the progress. Welcome, welcome. I know it was quite a long break, and Bezrat Hashem, we will, regain the momentum of um, of our classroom and continue uh, with um, with our regular rhythm, right? Until Hanukkah, we have these 6 weeks, and Bezrat Hashem, we'll be able to cover systematically a lot of ground. So I באמת want to take I want to take this time to go over um, our summaries, right, for every single paragraph, right? Because it's very essential that we do proper chazara. Yeah, because not doing proper chazara really leaves us with a lot of light, but we don't really have much kalim for it. And then we forget, right? If we don't repeat and we don't engage in whatever else we're learning in a practical level, so then we kind of, left with vagueness, and we have no idea what's happening. And then the concepts are piling one on top of each other, and they really leave us with some confusion, and then we go into the guesswork. So since this work is quite detailed, I prepared these little summaries for you, right here. As you could see, let me just turn on my annotate button, and we could move with it. Okay, so this is paragraph 1, right? So now in paragraph 1, the Rebbe really is explaining to us what is the purpose of Hahispaalus, right? The inner arousal. What's the point of it, right? So the core idea was, right, coming from the pasuk of Ashevasa Elavavecha, right? And you should bring it to your heart, and that refers to Hahispaalus. And Hahispaalus is the inner movement, right? And he calls it as Pa'ula, that it actually moves inside of us, that comes from the Hisboinanus, which is deep contemplation and das, right, in the greatness of Hashem. Now, the goal of it, the Alter Rebbe wanted all Jews to experience divine vitality rather than bodily vitality, right? And the terms for this is very essential, which is called Chaye Eloka, and he wanted for everybody to experience Chaye Eloka, Ispalut Chaye Eloka, and not Ispalut Chaye Basar. And all the way until paragraph 5, we're going to be detailing and explaining the difference between these two types of Hahispaalus, right? The true life, like the real life, means dveikos, like there's a cleaving to Hashem, and you who cleave to Hashem are all alive today, right? From that, kulam chaim ayoim. From this, we understand that the true life force into our neshama comes through the dveikus. And our body not really just alive because of what we eat and drink, right? But also alive through the neshama. And how do we know that? Very, very clearly, because a person could continue eating and drinking and still die, right? So a true life force comes through the neshama enlivening the body. But the body also sustains itself, secondary, right? Through the food and different physical activities that a person does. So now, for he is your life, right? Kihu chayecha does not mean love itself is life. Rather that Hashem himself is our life, right? And then when we realize that our life force, every inhale that we take in, is the exhale of Hashem, that he is on a constant basis enlivens us. Okay, that creates a very deep movement in our consciousness and in our heart. And that's when it's in our heart, this is the idea that we need to, right? We should bring into the heart this idea. And this idea, what we will call Hahispaalus, once it felt in the heart. For he is your life, right? Doesn't mean the love itself, right? So the question is, if Hashem is alive, why is love necessary? And what's the contradiction? Because the love is the love of the other. So if Hashem is a life itself of us, our own life, it's not the other, right? So why we need love? And the answer for that is that love applies to something outside of oneself. And since Hashem is our own life, the relationship is not love, but attachment, right? The command to love, therefore, refers to a process of revealing this innate attachment. Okay, so we are naturally, okay, instinctively attached to our source, which is Hashem himself. And that needs no provement. It's in our DNA. However, to reveal this attachment to a point that it's in our conscious mind, right? And it felt in a revealed way in our heart. And it actually also levels up with our body vibration. Okay, that's why we need love. Okay, so this was paragraph number 1, right? So in paragraph number 2, we went over into 2 levels, Dveikus and Ava, right? So now the soul is naturally united with Hashem, its essence, which is Ein Sof, beyond worlds. Okay, the connection is constant, like the connection between body and soul, right? And this is the Yechida, the spark of godliness in every single Jew, even the simplest. And when one hears the concept of Elokus, the concept of godliness, this Yechida is aroused automatically and naturally, like a spark, okay, drawn to a big flame. Okay, so now this is level number 1, which is we call Dveikus. Level number 2, right, which is the expressed Ava. This is Shema Yisrael, right? The whole point is to awaken this Yechida by Mesiras Nefesh, beyond intellect and understanding, and that it is revealed in the body. Okay, and I think I'm just going to add this here for clarification. And this is revealed in the body, in the heart and body. Okay, and this is level number 2. This is what the expressed Ava is. Now in paragraph number 3, right, the command v'ahavta, you shall love, right? So after the Shema Yisrael comes the commandment to bring that hidden attachment into emotional experience. Okay, the aim is, why we need to do that, is to reveal the godly feeling in the Nefesh Elokis, okay, and its emotions within the physical heart. This is the goal. Okay, so now what method do we need to have in order to attain this level? We need 2 things, the Yigias Nefesh and Yigias Basar, right? The toil of the soul and the toil of the flesh. What is the toil of the soul? This is the deep concentration, okay, and contemplation into the godly ideas. This is what we try to do here, and also in our Shari Yichud class. And also Yigias Basar, this is the toil of flesh, right? Refining our physical tendencies, okay? So we cannot, at the beginning of our Avaida, we cannot be indulging heavily in this physical world with all its pleasures, okay? And also expect spiritual refinement, right? This is just not happening, okay? Even though we're going to be really deeply concentrating and contemplating, right? So the avodah has to include both. One is the Yigias Nefesh and Yigias Basar. Now, what's the reason for toil? And this is a very, very important one to really understand, because we have this component of laziness in a little bit, right? What does this mean? We get a little bit like, why do I need to engage in this? Like, what's the point? Why do I need to toil? Now, anybody who have achieved anything in this world knows that you have to work for things, right? This is just what the world is, right? But there's another reason for it. Why do we need to toil? Because the Yechida, right, our essence of our soul is hidden. It's not hidden because it's covered up. It's not Helem Hamastir, that there is something that covers up and doesn't let the Yechida to reveal itself. No, that's not true. That's true to the godly soul, right? Our maybe not best midas of our animal soul could be like too much for our soul to express itself, right, and cover up. But for the Yechida, nothing stands in the ways of Yechida. So therefore, it's not because it's hidden, because it's covered, but because it's beyond revelation, which is Halem Ha'atzmi. What do you mean Halem Ha'atzmi? The concealment, right, is on an essential level. There is no vessel, there is no keli that could contain the light of the Yechida. So what do we do? So we kind of, that feels like very doomed, right? That means like no matter what I do, I'm not going to be the vessel. But that's not true. A true vessel for the light of the Yechida is the physical heart. But it needs preparation in order to contain the light of the Yechida. And that's what will happen in our true and complete Geula, that our physical heart is a perfect keli that Hashem designed for the light of the Yechida. And in order for that to take place, we need to do this effort in creating the keli, right? So to internalize its light, one must prepare vessels, the kelim, through meditation, okay, and emotional work, so that divine vitality permeates the physical heart and transforms the nefesh hativis, our natural soul. And this is the goal, okay? So our nefesh hativis actually goes through something which we would call shift, okay? So before, well, nefesh hativis always will remain a pleasure-seeking entity, and we cannot change its nature. The only thing what we could change is to transition from seeking pleasures in this physical world to seeking pleasures in God. Okay, and when we do that, when she's seeking pleasure, when for her elokus is the highest pleasure, and that's what Rabbi Hillel said when, people would tell him like, come on, I don't want to be like this holy guy, so then I would have to let go of all my physical pleasures. So Rabbi Hillel would laugh at them and say, if you only knew how much pleasure Hashem could actually give a person, because Hashem is the one who created all the pleasures of the world, right? So he is the source of pleasures. If you're really a pleasure-seeking individual, which is every single healthy individual is, okay, is a pleasure-seeking entity as a core of the Nefesh HaBahamis. And to be honest, if a person is not pleasure-seeking, there's something wrong physically with the body. Okay, there's something wrong with them. So a person by nature, by the health of the body and by the health of the nefesh hativis is a pleasure-seeking, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about it. That's just how Hashem creates us. And when we acknowledge that, and that helps us to shift, that helps us being just authentic. This is where we are. And when we are able to recognize that in us, okay, in our nefesh hativis, so it's the shift is much easier. Okay, for us, we will start view Yiddishkeit as a source of pleasure. Okay, and when that becomes the focus, and when we realize that the pleasure that Yiddishkeit gives us, right, especially the contemplation, right, especially the hisbonenus process, so then our nefesh habahamis is going to go wild by wanting that, because ultimately the satisfaction that our nefesh habahamis will get from seeking God, right, is just going to be so much more powerful, right? And since our nefesh hativis and our body in the source are coming from a much higher source than our soul, right? The avodah is going to become so much easier when we have our body on the board. And that's what essentially Baal Shem Tov means with Azov Tazov Imoy, right? That we should help our bodies, right? Not crush our bodies, how it was done in former generations. But as we come closer to Mashiach, we come more into that as we call somatic work, right? Working with our bodies, right? Soma is body, the name for body. And when we do that, we're ultimately reaching the closing of the gap between the body and the soul. Okay, when we ultimately recognize that our bodies are not our enemies. Okay, and the whole purpose of creation, that the neshama should be in the body. The whole purpose of creation, that we purify the body, right, and that the body becomes the ultimate vessel for the revelation of the essence of Hashem. Okay, so we're gonna go with that. So now, why do we need to do the yigia? Is so that our bodies and also our brain, right, through his bainos, we bring the ideas of Elokus into our consciousness, and through our consciousness and through our awareness of Hashem, that's how we change our personal reality. So now in paragraph 4, right, the Rebbe already goes into the two types of Hahispaalus, right? One is Hahispaalus Chayei Eloka, which is the divine life, which is what? When the Yechida shines into the Nefesh, Ruach, and the Neshama, awakening the whole person, right? And then produces real spiritual life, right? And consistent illumination. This is our ultimate goal, and this is what Alter Rebbe really wanted. Why that's Mito Rebbe reveals in Kuntres Hahispaalus to us that the true purpose of why Alter Rebbe went into this whole Mesiras Nefesh, and this is none other than Mesiras Nefesh, because Alter Rebbe was facing tremendous amount of hisnagdos, even from the colleagues or even from his own colleagues, and we know there's many stories where. Actually, one of Alter Rebbe's sons, I believe it was Reb Moshe, was actually cursed by one of his colleagues uh, when they were rebuking Alter Rebbe, that they didn't want the Chassidus to be for him actually to print the Tanya, the Chassidus to be revealed to such an extent, and they felt that Alter Rebbe is making a mistake. So besides the fact that Alter Rebbe actually, lost his daughter, the Voraleya, that gave up her life for this whole process, so he could continuously, do, that way that he wanted to do. Also, Reb Moshe was affected by it, his other son, and I know Mito Rebbe was very harshly rebuked for continuing the work, even more spreading, what Alter Rebbe was spreading. So it was not an easy thing for the Alter Rebbe, right, to undergo so much pressure and so much opposition from his own colleagues, meaning from the Talmidim of the Mezritch Maggid. And from this, we understand that, the value that the Alter Rebbe really wanted from the Hasidim, that we should not be satisfied just by the Hahispaalus Chayei Basar, just with, the lower level of Hahispaalus, but go all the way to awakening our Yechida. Right, so the second Hahispaalus is of Chayei Basar, right? When contemplations only reaches the intellect, meaning we only awakening our nefesh asichlis, we do our hisbonenus, right? And the emotions of the animal soul are turned on, right? Are stirred temporarily, right? And the divine emotions remain concealed, right? Or they partially awakened. So now both have value. Right? There's a reason why Hashem created this system in such a way, right? Because in our pursuit for perfection, so-called, right? In our pursuit to awaken our Yechida, which might take a long time, right? Or might not, we don't know. But it definitely an avodah, it definitely an effort on our part. So what could happen? Hashem gives us temporary, in a way, satisfaction from the work that we do. How do we do that, right? So both have value, and let's not forget about it, right? Chayei Eloka, true godly arousal, and that internal transformation. So Hispalus Chaye Eloka really provides us with full transformation of our animal soul, while Chaye Basar allows us to feel renewal and movement in the emotional realm, even if temporarily, right? So we actually feel the shift, right? Why? Because whether we like it or not, we still operate on Chaye Basar level, right? We are more aware of our physicality than of our spirituality. That's just human nature, right? We are neshama in the body. So the physicality of the world are more present in our consciousness. So although we may not necessarily experience those great lights, but little shifts in the body, we feel it and we feel like, Baruch Hashem, I'm in the right direction. So to completely deprive a person either all or nothing, it's really not the way of Hashem. Okay, the way of Hashem is le'at egasher. You slowly will push it away, right? Pushing away the nations, right? When we came to Eretz Israel, Hashem didn't want us just to come into an empty land and just, habituate it. That was not the goal. The goal was that the nations continue living there, and we're slowly pushing them away. That was the goal. Why is it? That just, there are many reasons for it, right? So because they live and, the house that you live in is more well maintained. And, when the Yidden come in, this house is available. Yeah, it's not like, this decile land where it was not, taken care of. So now in the spirituality, we see the Rebbe really answer a lot of times to people. People should not expect this major transformations and shifts where they become a totally different person. Right? That's already going to a delusion. Little by little, when we take little steps toward the right directions, we eventually arrive, as opposed to putting on ourselves unattainable goals and we never reach them. Okay, the same thing is when, this is true when people, want to become wealthy. Right? They don't tell, oh, how much money you want? I want $10 million. Okay, amazing. So go and earn it, right? But what if a person will start make a goal? I want to make double of what I earn right now. Right? You earn, I don't know, $4,000. You're working on earning $8,000, right? And when they make attainable goals, even for their consciousness, it's much easier to attain. Okay, and then after they attain $8,000, they could think about attaining $16,000 and slowly reach up to attaining $10 million, right? Because a lot of times when we push the bar too far, we're not getting anything, right? But if we little by little put small steps in the right direction, we actually reach our goal, even if it seems to be unreachable, right? Like $10 million. Okay, anyway, so both of these have advantage. Why? Because Chaye Basar, in the end, this is what will keep us actually moving. Because when we slowly get the interest of our Nefesh Bahamas into this, it's unbelievable, right? It's unbelievable of how much support we could get. And I could totally attest to you, there was a period of time where I was doing my, all my davenings and all my chitas before going to bed. And that really provided me with a great deal of satisfaction. I did it long enough, right? That when there were days where I wouldn't do it, I wouldn't have such nice, beautiful, restful sleep. So when I would wake up in the morning, I would be like, what do I do today, right? How can I arrange my day today? So I actually do all the things that I want to do, all my spiritual work, so I could actually have a restful sleep. And it's amazing. It worked every single time. So that shows that my Nefesh Bahamas more or less became addicted to doing all the spiritual work, right? And have a nice restful sleep. You get the idea, right? So once your Nefesh Bahamas is on the board, there'll be much less resistance from the body coming into you actually doing the works that you need to do as a Jew. So that's, that's another piece. Now, on paragraph 5, right, the Rebbe lays out the 3 general levels of Hahispaalus, right? So now, number 1 is essential awakening of the Yechida, right? This is instinctive arousal when hearing about godliness, not yet felt in the heart, right? When we just like, whoa, like for example, me standing in front of the Kaisel or going to davening by Arizal, I'm completely overwhelmed with my emotion, definitely very felt in the heart. But then what happened the next morning, right? The excitement all evaporates into the thin air, and that's it, as if it never had, nothing happened. There is no change. Why? Because 15 years ago, I was also by the Kaisel. So what changed? Nothing. It's a momentarily excitement that comes in because we are naturally connected with Hashem, essence to essence. And that's what happens when we visit holy sites and all that stuff. Okay, now, the other one is it's Palut Chayei Elokah, right? That comes from deep contemplation, right? Okay, draws the Yechida light into the heart, right? Because remember, we're already creating a vessel. It's not just like, oh, tzaddik came, tzaddik left. No. It's a real thing. It's a real keli, okay, that we are preparing our heart to reveal the light of the Yechida, right? And actually revealing, okay, also the midas of Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, right? And that sometimes influence or even transform the animal soul, right? That's the good news about number 2, Chayei Elokah. Now, Chayei Basar is something different. That love born within the animal soul when its intellect is absorbed by the divine soul's intellect, right? And that's only involving the Chabad of the Nefesh Elokis, right? And is revealed, not the emotion. Okay, it's still a movement, it's still about Hashem, but it's kind of like, living between the 2 worlds, right? When I'm focusing more, when my intellect is more in the world, the world sucks me in, right? When my intellect is in the holy world, right? I learn, I study, and all that. My natural emotions cling to that. So I'm kind of torn, right? On the level number 1, I feel the milchama, right? Between one reality and another reality, right? There's a gap, and the gap is wide. And I really need to work very, very hard with my intellect to kind of, bridge the gap. So that's Chayei Basar. And most of us, we find ourselves on this level. And that's okay. Because the main purpose of why we're engaging in this type of activities is Hashem. That's it. Okay. Now, that's a safe zone. All of a sudden, from this point on, the Rebbe is introducing in paragraph 6, right, a concept of false superficial arousal. Okay, there is no, and he makes it very, very clear that has nothing to do with God, right? Sometimes the opposite occurs, a false excitement, in the outer heart, and he calls it lev basar chitzoni, whatever that means. That comes without any contemplation or inner vitality, just emotional noise. It's hearing and feeling oneself. Okay, such Hahispaalus is not called life. This has no chayus, and it's not even avodas Hashem. It has nothing to do with Hashem. It's a person who wants to feel good about themselves, which, in essence, there's nothing wrong with it. But we cannot call it avodas Hashem because a lot of times people want to link spirituality with godliness, and it's actually 2 separate things. A person could be very, very spiritual, but it has nothing to do with God. Spirituality does not mean godliness. Godliness, it's a whole new dimension that enlivens both spiritual and material. Okay, it's a very actually Christian and Buddhist concept that God is spiritual. God is not spiritual. God is both. God's beyond spirituality and physicality. God is a source of all, both spiritual and physical. Okay, therefore, making God only spiritual, for them, lahavdil, that's what they feel, that they are connecting to divinity if, they're more connected with, with spiritual versus physical. But in Yiddishkeit, this concept is not true. On the contrary, a true mitzvah is when it's performed with a physical object. That's what a mitzvah. And those 6 mitzvahs tmidiyos that involve the mind and the heart, well, I think I'm not opening an America for anybody when we realize that a mind and a heart is also physical objects, right? And a person is not yotze mitzvah only with the thoughts in his mind. He actually has to have a physical change happen. And that's what happens when we contemplate about Hashem. Is a physical change happens in our brain. And when we love Hashem or fear Hashem, there's a physical change happens in the heart. And a lot of times, interestingly, when you're into reading Igros, which I am, a lot of times people, write to the Rebbe about the heart conditions. And the Rebbe would tell them, like, okay, you need to work on your love with Hashem. And the person might think, like, my kesher is a heart condition. What this has to do with the love of Hashem? Well, apparently it has a lot to do with the love of Hashem, because the physical heart changes when we experiencing an emotion. And that's actually a scientifically proven fact. So it does have effect in physicality. So now the true service means physical heart and flesh, right? Oh, we're going back to this dibuk achitzoni, right? It's the service, right? It's a physical heart and flesh, and genuinely moved by elokus, right? So the energy that pushes the avodas Hashem of a person is elokus, or desire to connect to elokus. Then person might experience a tremendous emotional excitement, godly excitement, the body kicks in, the pleasure kicks in, a person might experience even oineg, amazing. But you see, the kavana, it's me connecting with Elokus, period. Now, whenever a person wants to connect to something else, okay, they just want to feel good. I don't know, you're taking a shower, I don't know, a bath, or meditating in order to, to release endorphin, or you're running a marathon. This has nothing to do with Elokus in your consciousness, right? So that's, once you get that excitement, to connect it to Elokus and say, oh, I am experiencing God, is the wrong thing to do, because it's not, right? And that's what we call dibuk chitzoni, where it's not that it's forbidden, but it's not called. You can't bring this into the altar, right? That's called strange fire, right? Esh zarat. That's just the express, the term that is being used in the Maimer, right? When animal soul itself is transformed to love Hashem, right, with both inclinations, this reaches the highest level of Ava B'Tanogim. Right. In contrast, the external arousal, which is the Esh Zara, this is emotional heat without godliness, stemming from imagination or ego, leading to pride rather than humility. Okay, and how do we know that it's leading to pride? A person wants to impress somebody, right? Imagine, there's a rabbi or a rebbitzin, and they need to give this amazing lecture that's, that they need to show, I don't know, convince people of this, chayus, and make a beautiful, great for bringing, and blah, blah, blah. So whenever the kavana of impressing people, rather than sharing with them your genuine light, that's already a wrong kavana, and it could go very, very wrong. And sensitive people feel this type of speakers, and you cannot listen to them more than, a few minutes. Okay? But it's also not about coming about as like this big shot, an intellectual guy who knows so much Torah, and, I'm so cool. All what I'm interested is to have a very large following. Okay. So everybody should know that I'm just like this YouTube rabbi or whatever else is, or Beit Chabad and whatever else, right? So a lot of times, so then what do we do, right? The Rebbe, teaches us to lead with sincerity. Okay, and people actually appreciate it because we are not knowing all creatures, right? We are not these, tzaddikim who know everything and all that stuff. So whenever a person are really leading from the heart, okay, and sometimes it's going to be more exciting and sometimes it's going to be less exciting, right? But you are meeting your crowd where you at without trying to fake it, okay? That's already a very, very real, a very, very raw um, experiences. And that's what, attracts, number one, right? But that attracts not because you want to attract, but because you want to be genuine, right? And we see that also with Rebbe. There were times that the Rebbe is serious. There are times that the Rebbe is super sympathetic. There are times that the Rebbe, gives a smile. When we see the Rebbe showing the full spectrum, and sometimes we see the Rebbe is frustrated with Chassidim, right? Whatever that may be, we see in a live person, okay, sharing, his true self, right? So when, why Hashem, sends us tzaddikim, right? So we could emulate, right? So we see that they're not faking a reality. Oh, you know what? I'm sad, but I'm just going to put a smile on me and, just so my chassidim don't feel bad. Something we never see that with the Rebbe, right? We see with the Rebbe a raw expression of wherever the Rebbe is at, right? And that was with all the tzaddikim, right? We read the stories of the Baal Shem Tov. There was sometimes Baal Shem Tov, even on such holy days of Yom Kippur, was very sad or was actually very happy, during Rosh Hashanah. Where usually people are supposed to be more on a serious, because they are connected with themselves and whatever else is going on, this is how they're going to be carrying themselves. They're genuine, right? This is the meaning of the word. Okay, so that's we see that a true Hahispaalus is that when we are true with ourselves. Okay, and if a person is sad, he's sad. And if he's happy, he's happy. Now, that doesn't mean that we need to be stuck where we at. No. And if we want to change it, there's a way how to change it if we are not satisfied with where we're holding. But we should not be faking something that is not what's going on with us. Right? And it could be a time, you could be standing in front of the Kosel on the most holiest day and not feel anything. You feel numb. And it happens with us, right? So all these different negayim that a person might experience, B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to study, and that's already more chapter 5 of Kuntres Hahispaalus, and the Rebbe also gives advice what to do with that, right? But number one remedy is to acknowledge whatever very openly to ourselves. We don't need to share it with anybody, but to ourselves to acknowledge where we're standing. And this is the biggest gift that we can actually give ourselves in our Avodas Hashem is to be true, emes, with whoever we're holding. Right? Because and sometimes people feel afraid. So if I'm going to acknowledge truly what I'm holding, I will never come out of it. So that's why I need to fake. It's not true. A person's Yeshua could come in a blink of an eye. A person could come out of his state in a blink of an eye, from the lowest of low to the highest of high. So we should not fear that it could take forever. I'm always going to feel this way. I'm stuck. A Jew never stuck, right? Because every single moment there's a new reality unfolding, and we could move from one katzeh to another katzeh in a split of a second. Okay, so therefore that fear is unrealistic. It's just, our Nefesh Abaham is trying to sabotage us. But when we know where we at, right, we could ask Hashem for assistance. We could change, we could do things, right? But imagine a person is sick, but he doesn't want to acknowledge that he's sick. So he doesn't go to a doctor, right? I'm sure we know this. Yeah, we call it in denial, right? Is he going to really feel better? No, he's just going to stay in his sickness and not progress, right? But let's say if a person is sick and he says, okay, I'm sick at the moment. but I know Hashem could heal me at any moment. So what is he going to do? He's going to daven. He's going to have bitachon. He's going to, do so many other things. You could, find a keli, to go to a doctor, whatever he wants. And through this, the Yeshua will come. Or maybe it will come through his prayer, but he's going to do something about it. And his action of doing something about his current state is what's going to actually transform him. Okay. And that's, something to keep in mind. Okay. We're gonna move forward. That you could find actually this summary in our summaries, and this is just like a little table to help us just to get some structure about these first 6 chapters. And wanted to, just to read the last paragraph where we could, more or less summarize. This is our last paragraph, which we did last class, right? And where we describe this whole process of Dibur Chitzoni. I think we, Baruch Hashem, spoken a lot about it. Now, I'm gonna reach out to you guys. Are there any questions or clarifications that you might need pertaining to the text that we've learned? And maybe there are some kind of difficulties or something that you don't understand. Please unmute yourself, and this is the time to ask. No, everything is good. This actually means one of the two. Either everything is clearly understood, or we need to do something deeper. No, everything is clear. I hope I did not put you to sleep.
Everything is good, Mila. Thank you so much.
Yeah, who was it?
Elisa.
Oh, this is Elisa. Okay, good, great, beautiful. So I would suggest we will take about 10 minutes, and probably we'll divide you into 2 discussion groups, breakout rooms. And again, I'm going to pause the recording. Nothing is going to be recorded, so you could feel open in your discussions. And if you could discuss among yourself the structure of what we discussed, the structure of the mimer so far, the 6 paragraph, where, what, just the information base to understand that, okay, this is where we began. These were the questions we asked. And, I'm having that clarity. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the document that I was just sharing with you in the chat box, and you could review it together. So it will help you to follow the structure. But from my experience, when this type of discussion happens, it really helps beautifully the internalization process. And okay, so this was, this was shared with everybody. Hashem, let me just, do the breakout rooms. We're going to do 2 breakout rooms, so it's about 3 people in each. Maybe we could do 3. Okay, great. So I'm opening all the rooms. You should see an invitation, and just press that invitation and you'll be moved to your group. You cannot join during the time, and they listen to the recording. But that's an excellent question. What really happens? If I'm understanding your question correctly, Ariella, how does our contemplation affect our emotions, right? So it's a natural process, right? So whenever we are engaged in isbainanus, right, that's our contemplation, whatever that may be, because people could be misbainan on very worldly things, right? The word hisbaininus doesn't mean only kedusha, right? It's just a term that's being used for contemplation, right? Whenever we contemplate on something, it's a deeper way of looking into things, right? It's more of a research type of contemplation, as opposed to just randomly thinking of things. That automatically arouses our emotions. Why is it? Because our emotions more in a passive state. However, we need to keep in mind sometimes we are so deeply involved in whatever state of being we're in. Our body and emotions are the ones who are running the show and not the conscious mind. And that happens to many of us, right? Where we are so asleep, the conscious mind is so asleep that we are on autopilot. That's the term that's being used, meaning we not consciously doing things, even the davening and learning. Okay. So in that state, that's where we get confused. No matter what I think, I still feel the way I feel, right? So how is that? Am I saying that we are being influenced by our intellect? Okay, but that's already one of the issues. It's not a natural state. The natural state is that whatever I'm seriously contemplating at, meaning when I'm reclaiming my driver's seat of my being, right? When I'm the boss over myself. So then whatever I'm thinking is reflected to my heart. But whenever I'm in this spiritual ailment of sleep, slumber, right? Where my conscious mind is no longer the ruler, where my body is the ruler. Okay? Then yes, we do have a situation where contemplating, but I'm not aroused, emotionally to whatever the content of me contemplating. Right? And the answer for that is that I need to raise the bar of my contemplation. I need to awaken. I need to restructure. I need to reclaim my my driver's seat, and then realign. Then the rest of the processes will realign. I'm not sure, Ariel, if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, thank you. You did.
Okay.
But
So,
Mila,
yes.
that's extremely hard work, right? Because sometimes I think what you're saying is it's important that we are present in that moment. When you say take the driver's seat, means being present in that moment, because a lot of times we go through things in our lives that we do the actions, but we are so disconnected, like we're not aware, we are not connected to that. So in that sense, you are going through it only with your mind and your heart is not connected. Would you agree, would say that that's the right interpretation?
Could, yes, it's true. But you could reclaim, and I'll tell you what it is. Hard work, what means hard work in our generation, it's not really a hard work. Why? Because in olden days, or even 30 years ago, right, we were in a different spiritual state as a world, right? We need to understand that in order for things to take place, the world has to be refined, right? In order for Geula, right? So then there's a purification of the world. Then there's a purification of the body. And then, the physicality of things, right? So the world might be Gashmi, but not Humri. Yeah, Humri is coarse, that doesn't let the light shine, right? But then you could have a glass perfectly clean and it shines the light, right? The glass might be thicker than a small, I don't know, bag, right? But the bag creates a lot of darkness or a film, right? And then when you remove it, so what I'm trying to say is that we need to look at what the Rebbe is saying, right? It's true that when we read books from 200 years ago, right, they're going to call it avoida atzuma, right? It's a great work because they're writing from that standpoint. You understand? They're writing from that standpoint. At that time, yeah, the world was a very coarse place. Well, after all the work, Torah mitzvahs, you know, the revelation of Chassidus and these and the Frierdiker Rebbe coming to the Chatzi Kadura Tachton, and you know, elevating the lowest parts of the world, right? What was the point? The point was that the light of Torah shines everywhere and transforming the world globally and transforming the physicality of the body. We see the change from Tafshin on Aleph, Tafshin on Beis Sichos, right? That the Rebbe is telling us where what was completely unattainable, okay, back in those generations, definitely not by spiritual statures like, I don't know, mine, for example, right? Like I'm not this Baal Moichin or Baal Midis and all that, right? A regular person. This is already very different now. Very, very different. So, and the Rebbe says that the whole Avodah is already completed over and over. If you read Tafshin and Al Tafshin and Beis Sichos, Varmalchus, it becomes like an obsession. Like, okay, over. But we don't realize what this means. That means that the work that we need to do is nothing compared to a person doing this work 200 years ago and what they would attain and what we would attain, right? Imagine somebody is driving on a horse, okay? We even see it in technology, you understand? 200 years ago, if I need to come from one town to the next town, it was few days, few weeks journey, right? Now, we have technology that would, you know, what's the fastest technology now? Is a jet, right? So far. All what you need is money, right? You just pay this guy, and in 15 minutes, you're somewhere where it would take you a few weeks to get 100 years ago. If it's happening in this physical world, that means it's happening in a spirituality as well. It's must. Everything Begashmias is mishtalshel from the Ruchnias, right? So what by somebody, an avoida, you know, would take few weeks, few years, maybe few lives, right? Right now would take just few seconds, few minutes. So we shouldn't, it's the time is moving faster than ever. Right? The rise of the technology, we see that. Why all of a sudden people are figuring this out now? What have changed? Well, they couldn't figure it out 1,000 years ago. It still was the same world. What changed? All the laws of nature were here. Everything was available. Everything was here. What have changed? It was the same human being. Nothing changed in universe. That why all of a sudden for the last 200 years, we see people from, I don't know, sleeping in tents or living who knows what, right? You know, pretty much the same way for a few thousand years. And all of a sudden having the progress, the technological progress that we're experiencing now. It's definitely, the Rebbe says, because what it says in Zohar, right? About Parshas Noach, right? About this whole opening of, you know, the Taruvis Hashemayim. Something is opening up from the gates of heaven that we all of a sudden figuring out this technology and we becoming this and now if you're not attuned with technology for a month, you're already behind. Every single month there's new thing coming up. And you think with AI, forget about it. Every single month there's a new AI comes out that's just smarter than the other one. And new and new and new, and this is beautiful, beautiful thing to see, because if it's happening begashmias in this world, this is how much is being opened up in spiritual as well for us to attain. Okay, so therefore we shouldn't think like, oh my gosh, this is such a hard thing to do. Yes, it's definitely hard than just you know, going with a stream, right? But that's actually one of the indications about how to know if it's a kosher goose or not. Right? You see a goose, you want to catch it, or I don't know, a swan or anything, right? If you see its ability to swim against the stream, then you know it's a healthy bird. If it only swims with the stream, you know it's sick. All right, so that shows that the chayus of a person is the ability to withstand a current, right? And what's a current in our generations? We, I think, in our generation, left with avodah of breaking the habit of being ourselves, of our used self, right? We have our own programs, we have our own understanding of the world, and we kind of live with this, paradigm years and years and years and years, right? So the Rebbe says it's golus pnimi, right? So what we're working with is pretty much golus pnimi. We don't need to worry about the world anymore because the Rebbe did the job. The Rebbe already did everything what needs to be done. I think Goyim are on the peak of understanding God and understanding the concept of God more than ever before. They understand spirituality unbelievably. Understanding quantum physics, understanding how all the laws work and how the entire world, which they called universe, right, is energy. It's a huge step for Goyim to start understanding that everything is Elokus. And they have no problem with that. They create programs, they have all kinds of things with this whole manifestation movement and everything else. What are they saying? They are saying exactly what's written in the Chassidus, right? And we see by looking at the world and how ready the world is. So what is there to wait? It's our avodah pnimis. And I think the last Dvar Malchus, the Rebbe says very clearly, that Vayakel is already done. That's it. We all gathered. I don't think any Yid needs any persuasion that we're ready to move into Eretz Yisrael and to be as one nation. I don't think everybody's ready on the Vayakel level. Pikude is this detailed work that we need to do within ourselves, the building of our own kelim, so the light could shine through us. That's something that's left for us, yes. And that
what I meant, difficult work, like exactly like you said, everything is moving so fast, so much technology, so much that for us to stop and be grounded on our and be present where we are is that for me has been the hard work for now, because everything is moving so fast. Like you said, you get in a plane here, you fall asleep in Israel and you wake up in United States. It's like sometimes it moves so fast. I wake up at night, I don't even know where I am. So that's what I meant about this hard work, to be present, to be aware of what we are feeling, and to contemplate and to stop all this fast noise around us, to be able to contemplate in the mind to a level enough to bring it to the heart, to feel.
Yes. Yes, it is definitely a hard work. They're not, but it's not the same intensity, and it will not take as much as time as it would take to Reb Hillel to do. That's what I'm saying. If we would live in Reb Hillel's time, he would tell us, okay, calm down. It will take you 50 years to attain, right? For us, it might be, 5 days of intense work. Right. So the time shifted. Now, obviously, we have a challenge, right? Otherwise, it's going to be like a free bread, right? Hashem doesn't want to give us free bread. Hashem wants us to give us a feeling that we're earning it, right? So our avodah measures in our head is like, oh my gosh, But after we complete it, it's like, oh, really? That was that hard? It wasn't that bad. We could do. Yeah, it's like a workout. Yeah. Have you done workouts? Oh no, I don't have kayak. I don't want to do this tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. No, my feet hurt. This hurt. I have this appointment. I have that appointment. Right? This avoidance. But then after you do it, you feel so good. You're like, oh, what was that exactly? So this is exactly what it is, right? The workout is this mental, is really being disciplined, right? And the gevura that we need, that discipline, that this is what I'm doing right now, and this is the time allocated for this, and I'm not moving from this. That will take, yeah, for sure. That's an effort. But is that really an effort? Yeah, it's an effort. Fair on our level, this is a huge effort.
I say hard, in a sense that there's so much around, so much noise, so many distractions, so much, I don't remember which rabbi I was listening to, and he said, that nowadays to be observant Jew, like in New York, it's a huge effort because you are so, there's so much around to assimilate to the how do you say, to the non-religious world, that it is an effort for us now more than when we're all in Eretz Israel.
You
But
know, it's interesting. At the same time, Elisa, at the same time, you hear this crazy stories of people flying out. They're going all the way till Tibet, okay? And the Tibet monk looks at the guy and says, "Where are you coming from?" And says, "I'm a Jew." He's like, "You know what? Go back to your religion." Can you
I heard that.
imagine? Like, that would not happen 100 years ago.
Yeah, I heard those.
That's what I'm trying. It's like even the Goyim would recognize, would be like, "Okay, what's wrong with you?" So now we see that the Goyim are helping us to recognize that there is a Hashem in the world. There's Ein Od Milvado, and recognizing the greatness of the Jewish nation and the whole tumult that's happening right now in the world, right? It's all zoomed in into the greatness of the Jewish nation. You see, it's amazing to see that, right? And just be inspired by that and says, if Goyim are pointing my way, okay, and telling me, okay, that I have this greatness within me, like, okay, I have the powers. Do you know what I mean? Like that gives a Jew a power.
Right, absolutely.
And we see the world are pointing at our own heritage so much more, like never before. It's unbelievable. To see that. And I guess that's that's part of what we need to do.
Yeah, it's amazing. A Jordanian official said it's time to embrace Israel. I'm like, whoa, that is huge for them to say that.
Exactly.
Amazing to see. It's really, really incredible.
And I think the more we focus on that, you see, the avodah of our generations is not to bury ourselves in the challenges, okay, but feel the power within us to overcome them. Do you understand? The goal is not to focus how hard it is, but to focus how strong I am.
But that is my question to you in the beginning. How do I differentiate that this is coming from higher, it's coming from Hashem and it's not coming from my own ego excitement?
No, believe me, your ego excitement, it's usually something that disconnects you from Hashem. Look at the end result. What's the totzah, right? What's the end result of that thought? If that thought, disconnects, okay? For example, imagine I'm such a big shot. I'm such an amazing Rebbitzin, like I'm better than others, right? That disconnects.
Yeah.
Okay. But if I am so powerful, Hashem giving me so much powers, I could have so much impact on the Yidden. Okay. That's not coming from the ego. That's coming from a true self, okay, that believes in self, right? That believes in Hashem's power within me, right? And how much I could do good in the world. You see? It's a different energy. It not disconnects, on the contrary, it connects, right? So whatever thought comes to you, how to check, Evan Abuchen, what's the end result? The end result, I'm better than others.
Negative.
I'm so special. It's a disconnect, right? What I want to do, I believe in my own powers, which is the power of Hashem within me. I'm bringing more goodness. I'm connecting more things. So that's coming from the true self, right? And you know what? Later on, we will be learning the difference between Chaye Basar and Divuch Chitzoni. As I told you, I promised one thing. It's a long mimer.
No, it's amazing. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Much hatzlacha. It's 2:00. My lunch break is over.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a great.
All the best. Much hatzlacha. All the questions you could ask in the group.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Bye.